am curious to see what Parker can do in this thing, because I am not the race car driver, but this makes me feel like one.
Little right-hander here. Oh, oh.
Welcome to Hagerty's Rated, the review show where we put a journalist and a race car driver in the same car to get their different points of view. At the end, we'll score them based on how they drive, how they feel, and how we think they'll age. Today, the Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 gets rated. You talk muscle cars, you talk sports cars, and the Ford Mustang is always in the conversation. It's the all-American car, supercharged, 760 horsepower, 5.2 liter V8. You're looking at just under 74,000 baseline, but if you want it fully loaded, which why wouldn't you want a car like this fully loaded, you're gonna be at 95,000. Add in the carbon fiber track pack, and you're looking at over 100 grand. You're paying for what you get, and this is a great car. If you hit the throttle through the corner, it does feel like it's gonna step out on you, but that's part of the fun. It's a little bit risky and it's a little bit edgy, and I think that's why it's been such a sell and has such a history. I don't think you would ever have buyer's remorse, especially if you get to take it on track every weekend. It's got a really throaty sound. On acceleration, you know you're driving a sports car. But it may not be quite as approachable as other cars just because of how much power it has. See what Parker can do in this thing, because I am not the race car driver, but this makes me feel like one, especially when you take the corners fast. But I feel like for as quickly as it accelerates, braking is great too. I've had a lot of fun with this car, but I have a feeling Parker is gonna have even more fun. We'll see what he can do with it.
You survived.
I did, and I had fun. It's a handful though.
That it is.
Just
definitely
try not to spin it out.
I'm feeling good about today. This car hasn't been very nice to me, but today, this is our day. On a sheet of paper, this would not be the car that you would bring to Atlanta Motorsports Park. At 760 horsepower, being a Mustang, all driven through the rear wheels, that is normally a recipe for disaster. It is amazingly overpowered, all driven through the rear wheels, and it's a Mustang, which have a bit of a reputation for being a little bit hard to handle. They like to get away from the driver. The rear end of the Mustang just sort of sides itself, wanting to overtake the front of the Mustang often, and this one is no different. But with that, when you get it warmed up, these tires start to come up to temp a little bit. For being a 760 horsepower monster, it's not, at least at 6 to 7/10, it's not trying to grab you and spin you into a tree. It's giving you some leeway. It's not gonna just suddenly have a spike in power as you get on the throttle. It's when you try to get to 8, 9, 10 tenths on a lap that you really start to have to find the groove of this car. It's not an approachable car at the limit. Below the limit, yeah, there's an element of intimidation. You think about the horsepower, you hear the noises. You think about Mustangs and how intimidating they can be, and this being the most powerful one of all time, but it's not bad. When you're trying to get that little extra, that's when it gets a little scary. Braking wise, for being a heavy car, they do a great job of that. You look at this huge front nose, and you know instinctively, I don't need to charge these corners. I've got all that power in that supercharged V8 to pull me out of the corner to make lap time, and that's what it does best. Go down the straightaway. I know the engineers at Ford have done a miraculous job with this car in terms of making it something that can get around this racetrack at 6 or 7 tenths. You want new tires, the right temp, make sure that this car is the way you want it to go out there and get the best lap time. Little right-hander here. Oh, and I spun it. And that's what happens when you go too far. And that is, right there in a nutshell, the Ford Mustang Shelby GT500. I don't know what else to say. That just proved it all.
Now that we've successfully and semi-successfully tested the GT500, I saw that spinning.
Yep, that happened.
It's time to rate it, so let's start with handling and feel.
A 5 for me. Because this car, for whatever reason, I just cannot feel it. It's only halfway that good to 10, so it's a 5.
Only halfway. I gave it a 6 because it actually had a little more stability than I expected, but I did have traction control on.
That helps, just
it helps
a little
bit.
Yeah.
All right, approachability.
A 3, because anytime I go further than 7 tenths, that's when it bites.
I'm gonna say a 5, kind of middle of the range for me. So sound. I'm surprised on the sound for you, a 6?
Well, it sounds good, but it sounds like a big V8, you know?
That's what it's supposed to sound like. I gave it a 7 because when you're in the throttle, it gives you that guttural sound you're looking for when you're driving a sports car. Interior and tech.
They've had the same feel and look for the last couple years. Get a little tired, the retro theme. I give it a 6.
I'm with you on that. I gave it a 5. It felt very classic, almost too classic to where I was wanting a little bit more out of it. The look back.
So, I mean, well, this color, it should be 1,000, right? You would get out of and look back at because you survived.
Yes, I gave it a high look back. It's a good looking car. The green obviously grabbed your attention. And yes, you walk out of it thankful you still have feet on the ground. And finally, timelessness.
So I got an 8 here. I think it's a very memorable car, right? This is a car that even in this era of cars having insane horsepower and that sort of thing, it's 760 horsepower. You're gonna remember that. But I actually felt that was a little low, so I'm gonna give it an 18.
Oh!
Because for me personally, it has tried to kill me every time I've driven it. So I will never forget this car, and to be honest, it's timeless because I don't want to ever have to drive it again.
Right, well I gave it a 9 because it's classic. You think muscle cars, you think a GT500. I think it's gonna stand the test of time, and we're gonna look back at this in 50 years and be like, man, that was still a cool car then, and it is now. All right, well there you have it. Do you want to get back in the car?
No, not at all.
All right, I'll take it.